Welcome back. I'm Tom Hewitt, and this is News 13's Eye on the Election. I'm here with Diane Hutchison, running for re-election to the Borough Assembly. And Diane, you've served on the Assembly now for a full term, and you've been the presiding officer for at least part of that time. And so, people may be more familiar with you than the average candidate. But for those who don't know you, maybe just how about a little bit of your background and also how you came to be seeking another term on the Borough Assembly?
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Alaska. I graduated from Wasilla High School in 1974, came up here to college in 74, got an accounting degree, played on the women's basketball team for 4 years, and decided I liked it up here and to make it my home. And so I've been here permanently since 1978. I'm married to Gary, and we have 3 wonderful children that we're proud to have raised here and have come through our public school system here. As far as I've been through this a term now, and I've enjoyed it. I think that I've added to the Assembly with the accounting background. It gives me a little different perspective on budget issues and on some of the problems that we have facing us.
The Borough Assembly was instrumental in the creation of the interior gas utility that's currently vying along with FNG for rights to gas distribution in the borough outside of the city. And there are people who, some of whom have come before the Borough Assembly to say that they feel like having that interior gas utility competing with FNG could somehow slow down the process and delay getting natural gas trucked to Fairbanks. What's your take on that, and do you support the IGU and the work that they're doing?
I do. I was very supportive, actually, of forming them, and I'll tell you why. I had talked to Dan Britton previously when I worked for Senator Stevens. He had talked to me about the fact that he'd gone before the state legislature looking for funding for a trucking project. And, it's been very obvious that in order to serve, other than the very high density area of the borough that F&G is currently certificated in, to serve any of the outlying area is going to take public funds. And so, personally, I don't care whether it's IGU or F&G or some other company. It could be Instar, it could be anybody else. I don't really care who does it. But because it's public funds, in my mind, that makes whoever takes those public funds much more like a public entity. So I don't see it as a public entity competing against a private entity. I see it as 2 entities receiving public funds, and the only way it becomes a viable project is for whoever gets it to have public funds. We need it to get out to individuals in the borough, or else it's not going to help our whole situation that we were trying to help in forming that utility, which was expand outside of the 1,100 customers that F&G is currently providing to and get it to the bulk of the borough, or we're not going to solve our air quality problem or lower energy costs.
Energy issues are largely seen as the most important thing facing Fairbanks right now and the interior at large. What would you see as the second most important issue, the next most important thing that the Assembly should focus on, and what do you think they should do? Well,
it's concurrent right now, and that's the Eielson issue, but in a larger picture, it's the defense, the economic base in our community that is about 38% is dependent on the bases. And what we have going on, the borough right now is looking at what we call JLUS, or Joint Land Use Studies. I got involved with these when I worked for Senator Stevens. Again, he felt one of the important things for our community to realize was that down in the States, military bases are getting encroached on as the communities grow. And if we could start doing something that would keep that from happening so that they could for sure look to future years of expansion where they can do their mission, perform their mission without worrying about encroaching on the community. We're in the process of that. The last meeting was supposed to have been last Wednesday night. Based on the public input, I think we're probably going to have at least one more, and I encourage the public to get involved in that process. But basically it's trying to work with the military to minimize land conflicts so they can do their mission, and our residents aren't going to complain about the noise or the amount of activity that's going on. So that's a huge issue. I actually have about 3 more that I think are super important, but I don't know how much you want me to get into those.
Well, while we're on the issue of Eielson and defense, the borough's tax regime is based on property taxes, which are relatively stable. So there's not a lot of fluctuation year over year in terms of the amount of money that the borough has to devote to its budget. But if there were something, some kind of catastrophic economic event like, 1,200 active duty folks moving out of Eielson and all the associated personnel, that could have some, really meaningful impact on that bottom line, property tax valuation in the borough, and the borough could very well see a hit. How would you say the borough would best be equipped to handle that and push forward?
That is one of the big problems that we face is our revenue base, other than federal grants or state grants that are coming in, is property taxes. We don't have a sales tax. Our biggest property taxpayer is the TAPS pipeline. And so part of the issue of property taxes is we'd say, well, the biggest taxpayer is TAPS, but if we don't do something to increase the throughput in TAPS, then we're going to start seeing that decline too. So if you were to combine that with a loss of the military, it would be devastating. When you talk about having to lay, the biggest part of our borough budget is personnel costs. If you start talking about having to lay people off, and this is one of my other big issues, is we will get hit with PERS termination costs and having to pay the potential unfunded liabilities that we haven't already paid. Those will now become due and payable to the state of Alaska, and I believe, if I could be wrong on this, but I believe that the time period that we had to pay those to the state would be a 5-year time period. That could be potentially devastating too. I don't have an answer for what the borough would do to make up for those costs if they came due. Obviously, it's almost a chicken and egg. You lay people off so that you save money, but then you have to pay their pension costs to the state. So we're actually looking at, I went down to Juneau last year trying to get the state legislature to look at this problem and address it. And so far there hasn't been success in that. The borough's been working on this for a number of years actually, because we foresee it as a potential even in managing our current workforce. We can't lay off a department or a category of worker without triggering these PERS termination costs.
All right. Well, I think that's about all the time we have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Diane.
Thanks
for coming in. And for the rest of you, don't go away just yet. We've got Jamie Schwartzwald coming up next with sports.